Hey guys, welcome back to another Virgo Girl recommendation. And today's recommendation is TMZ presents Prince Fatal Secrets. Now, I have seen quite a few Prince documentaries and things that have come out since his untimely passing. And some of them were okay, some were kind of odd, and what have you. It's just the thing about it is when you have someone who is so mysterious and who we didn't get much from him about himself. We got bits and pieces, but no one really truly knew Prince in a way that was the way we know a lot of other people, other celebrities out there, especially in today's time where everyone's on the internet and exposing everything. Prince definitely was more of a private person and very mysterious. And most of us just were here for the music when it came to Prince, the music, the fashions, the man, just his personality and things like that. We were people that were fans of Prince for the most part were okay without knowing too much of his personal information. If it came out, it was, hey, we listen, that's fine. But most people were so in awe of his talent, of the music, that was enough. And at any rate, so it led us down this road of not knowing much about Prince. But the things we did know about Prince were like more on a positive side, like what I had thought of, especially towards the end, like his later years. He was definitely into like being spiritual, and the spiritual thing, he exhibited that, throughout his career, but really towards the end, he made it known, that he was, a Jehovah's Witness. And, he was just really, really out about how he was really close to God and things like that. In the later years, he made it very known. If you didn't know, you definitely knew out of his mouth how he felt. And also, as far as his personal life, we never really, I mean, there were times where he was like on the cover of magazines with women and things like that, but it just wasn't much that we knew like in depth about him. So when it came to like his personal life, but what we did know, or what we thought we knew as far as about his health, was that he was a very healthy person. I know he spoke about being a vegetarian. He spoke about just healthy living, and everyone that ever spoke about him always spoke about how he didn't drink, he didn't smoke, and drugs were an absolute no, 100% no. So there were even times where people were like, if you were caught doing drugs like on his tour or around him or what have you, that's it, you're out. So he had a zero tolerance for drug use, period. So it was really, really shocking to me. I definitely would consider myself a fan of Prince since a very, very young age. Basically, for me, I got introduced to Prince when I was very young, probably like 4 years old, by my uncle, who I admired a lot. My uncle was a huge Prince fan. So because he was a Prince fan and he liked Prince, I automatically was into it because I thought everything he did was, perfect. I thought he was just everything. I thought a lot of my uncle. So my uncle, when I was a little small toddler, would always play Prince, and we would sing, and all the way up, as I got older, we would talk about Prince and the music, and I became a huge Prince fan just from being exposed to it. And to make a long story short, basically, for me, growing up, I always felt a little eccentric. I always felt like I didn't necessarily fit into the mold of what everyone else was doing or the way everyone else was looking, and nor did I have a desire to. I liked certain things that weren't maybe what everyone else liked, and I was cool with that. And Prince, when he was that person that I was like, yes, it made sense to me. Prince made sense to me because he was so different and because he was so confident in it and because he just was so talented, but at the same time, he didn't look like anybody else. He didn't look like any other celebrities that were out. He was just so different. And I thought that was simply amazing. And I really looked up to Prince. just as an entertainer. And yeah, I don't know if looked up to him is the word. It's not, no, that's not the right word. Those aren't the words I really want to use. I just would like to say that I just really liked his music, and I really thought he was an amazing entertainer. And pretty much because my uncle was my uncle, and he actually lived with me and my mom at the time, he always played Prince. So there was so much Prince in the house. Like I just became used to it. And that was just like my outlet. And when I would have like bad times, it became like something that would just make me feel better just listening to his music. So it was it was really for me just like shocking, to say the least, to find out that this person that I had grew up, like when I was like 4, 5 years old, just listening to this music. And basically my whole like teenage years, like that being the primary music that I loved listening to, just because of my uncle, my uncle's influence. And then it was my own wish to just listen to Prince because the music was so good to me. But at any rate, just, for me, just looking to Prince as someone who I definitely would say I was fond of, and someone that I looked to as a good example. I always thought of him as clean living. I always thought of him as someone who would never do drugs. So in turn, like for me, my idea about drugs, just from this person being such a big part of my life, as far as, and I would say, well, this is what I would say. I would say he was very influential over my life because I was a huge fan. And because he was so anti-drug, it was like the whole time growing up, I, in turn, was very anti-drug. I just thought, no way, would I ever do drugs? And, just everything, just clean living. Like I really took that to heart. And I think what really, just really, the fact that he died was already shocking enough, but the way that he died for me was just heartbreaking. It's just like, how is this so? My whole childhood was a lie. What? And then of course we find out later that there's more to the story. Back then, it very well could have been that there was nothing going on. He was living this clean and sober life, but the thing about it is life happened to him, like, and he was in chronic pain. So the difference, like, the reason why I brought this whole documentary up, that, or special, I don't know what it's called, but it's whatever TMZ did. They did like a research on Prince, and they just did this whole little story on him. But the reason why I brought this up is because basically, when you think about it, it's like Prince, the thing that he detested the most, the way people made it seem like he was just so very, very anti-drug. I mean, that's what everyone just talks about, and how shocked they were, like the ones that were close to him. And the thing he detested the most was the thing that took him out. But the difference is, when we think of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, is we think of like the partiers who were doing these hardcore, like street drugs. And, we knew they were getting high off these things, and they talked about it, or, you just knew they were living a wild lifestyle. That's just how it was. But with Prince, it was just the opposite. Like no one would ever, and even when you see him, he doesn't look like someone that's doing any types of, hardcore drugs or anything. So he just didn't have that image. He didn't come off that way. So it was just really a big shocker. And like I said, I bring up this series, not even a series, this, I'll say documentary. I'll just, for lack of better words, I'll just say like it's a semi little documentary that TMZ did. Basically, in there, it's like that it was the key thing. Everyone was so shocked that he was even doing, any types of pills, period. People were just shocked, and it was just like they were just like in disbelief, and they couldn't believe it. And so for me, I feel like I felt the same way. I felt, wow. But then I also thought like, well, he put everything on the floor for his fans. I mean, he gave his all. I mean, that man was a performer, you know. He never disappointed his fans when it came to the music and the shows that he did. So whatever he was doing, it never really affected the shows. It never affected the quality of the music. But thinking back on everything, it's like when I watched that show on, you know, that TMZ did, it was like, wow, you know, they made a point, like he got to the point where he was just kind of closed off. He wasn't very open, basically not trusting is, you know, kind of the word they use. Like there wasn't many people that he could trust. And I think once people get so famous, that's probably the case because you don't know who's in it for just to be a clout chaser and it's going to air out your business as opposed to who's there for you genuinely. So it's probably really hard. And he had been famous for pretty much since he was very, very young. So it was hard probably for him to trust anyone. But the sad part about the whole thing is all of this, you know, when you watch the show, and I highly recommend that you watch it, especially if you are a Prince fan, it it totally could have been prevented. Like it's just definitely could have been prevented. Some of the things that kind of like red flags for me, first of all, so he had this whole scare like a week before, almost like a week before he actually passed away, where he had OD'd already. And they gave him Narcan, I think that's the name of the stuff that brings you back out when you OD on those opioids. And that alone was like, wow, hey, we got to do something. And the way they made it seem like his friends, one of his friends, I think his name was Kirk, he ended up enlisting a specialist who dealt with, you know, addictions and things like that. And that guy, it's just the way it happened was just like, it's just crazy. That guy was on his way to help him and arrived like too late. Like he was already gone. But I mean, he was literally on a plane to help him. Like everything was in order, you know, to get him some help, to get him to the facility where he could, you know, actually get some rehab. And the thing about it is too, I was thinking to myself, Prince was always so private. He was always like this person who we all thought was clean. He always has this squeaky clean image. So imagine what he must have been going through at the thought of trying to get some help for this, you know, the possibility of it maybe going public. You know, I think that was a lot for him to deal with too. So that alone also makes it kind of like, oh, you know, it's just gut wrenching to think about it because going to therapy definitely would have been something that someone that private would have had pause about, you know, would have been just kind of like, you know, I'm sure it wasn't something he was jumping up to do, but at the same time, I'm sure he knew that it was something that he needed to do to get himself better, perhaps. You just never know what, you know, the person is thinking when they're going through things like this. But in the back of my head, you know, it's like I still think, no way, this can't be true. You know, it's just I still have these thoughts like, no. And what really makes it crazy is that no one really talks, you know, no one really came out and said, yeah, because I saw him. It was like everyone that was close to him, they still stood by, for the most part, they still kind of stood by the fact that he is clean. He wouldn't do any kind of drugs or anything. However, now I didn't. Some of the things that they said on this TMZ little show, I didn't know about them. So there was one where a couple of people, one was Sheila E. and one was his ex-wife. They both came out and said um, things that led to them pretty much knowing um, about what was going on a little bit to a certain degree. Now on the Sheila E, it was a little bit more vague, but when it came to the ex-wife, this his ex-wife, his second ex-wife, she's not my type, but the other lady that he was married to, her name escapes me right now, but she said that she knew that he was, taking the pills. So, and basically it was for pain. She knew that he was taking painkillers, basically. And she was married to him, I think, in the early 2000s. Or, I don't know, I think maybe 2005, 2006. Don't quote me on that because it's funny. I didn't even know that. I don't know that much about her. That's another thing. I didn't know much about their whole situation. That was also very private and quiet, as with most things with Prince. But she seemed to know, that he was taking them. But the one thing I will say, everyone that was involved with him, they are all still to this point being very discreet. They may say a little something here or there, but no one is just coming out blasting him. Have you noticed that? And I think it's awesome that people, even after he's long gone, they're still respecting the fact that he was a very private person, because there are people out there who know things where they can just come out and kind of like blast him, but they haven't done that. And that says something, that people actually respect his privacy even in his death. Because most of the time when people pass away, that's when all the people come out of the woodwork. Even the ones that aren't the most honest, they come out. But especially the ones that were like close to them and have the, quote unquote dirt, they always generally come out when the person passes away. So that's one thing you didn't see with Prince. Also, this video is kind of like a longer one because this was a little bit more personal for me. I want to talk about how, to close this video out, I want to talk about life, and how a lot of times me included, we tend, things that we don't like, we tend to, whether it's on purpose or not on purpose, we tend to judge people who are in that situation. And a lot of us have certain things that is just our thing, where it's like, no, no, no. Just like how, people were like, Prince was very anti-drug, and how he basically was like, no to the drug, like very just against it and against anyone who, was going to do them or what have you. It's like, I personally can say, for example, I'm a vegetarian, right? And I definitely do not believe in eating meat at all, period. And the thing about it is, when you're a vegetarian, you kind of like don't understand. Like, I've been a vegetarian since 1996. So a very long time. So pretty much that's all I know, is being a vegetarian. So the whole meat thing is like foreign to me at this point, where it's like, I don't even get how people eat. I don't even, like, what? You're eating meat in 2023 kind of thing, But if I have a friend and we go out to dinner and they eat meat and I'm eating whatever I'm eating that's vegetarian or vegan or what have you, it doesn't bother me. So yeah, that's one thing. Whereas I could be like, oh my God, you're so disgusting. So that doesn't bother me. However, I've always been the person that was like, when it comes to people doing certain things, like let's say drugs or what have you, I think to a certain degree, I did feel bad for the people who were like really bad off. But then in the back of my mind, I found myself too, like judging to a certain degree, like, why would you even get yourself in that situation kind of thing? Why would you even do that? But as I've gotten older and as I watch things like, even like this whole video about Prince and how his life ended and all these things, it kind of like, just getting older and just watching that, it just sparks, things just spark in you where you realize, okay, so initially, before I watched this, I was saying to a friend, because I have family members that struggle with addiction, and it definitely ruined my relationship with, many family members, because they are a shell of who they used to be. They are not the same people that I knew in the past. It's like, when I say they aren't the same people, I'm saying because the drug takes over and they become, their personality changes, just everything is just different. And it's just not them. And it's almost like, I was telling my friend, I feel like the drugs are like the devil. It just like turns people into something that they would never be, otherwise, it's just crazy. But at any rate, so when it comes to, oh, I could never, the point I'm making is, growing up at a young age, seeing like family members struggle with addiction, I could never get it. I'm just like, what is going on? Get it together. My whole thing was like, get it together. You got to get it together. I saw families being ruined because of drugs. And as I get older and as I've gone through things in my life, it's like people need, humans need an out. Humans need some kind of way, some way to release when they are going through the ups and downs of life, the trials and tribulations and things like that. Something has to give, or you'll just simply go crazy. So when it comes to people using different things as an outlet, it could be food, it could be like, relationships. Some people are addicted to, have codependent relationships with people. There's just all kinds of things out there that go on. And I think a big one is food. A lot of people, food is their friend kind of thing. A lot of people, it's just so many different little things that you can do that aren't the healthiest for you either. But when you do drugs as an outlet, it's just out loud. It's there, and it's definitely going to get more judgment than maybe if you say, oh, I feel sad, I'm going to go eat some ice cream kind of thing, just because you're having a bad day and that makes you feel better. That definitely is not going to be the same as someone who's just like, oh, I think I'm going to go do some hard drugs to release my pain, to feel better from this pain that I'm going through in life. So I say all that to say, we are more alike than we are different as humans. Although, when I look at life, there's things that I personally, I just don't want to do. I'm just not interested in doing certain things in life, i.e. drugs, things like that. I'm just not interested. That's not my thing. But other people may look at things that I may do and they'd be like, oh, I can never do, that's not their thing. Everyone has a vice. And I'll just leave it at that. Your vice is your vice because that's what you're comfortable with. That's your lane. Another person's vice may be drugs. Another person's vice may be, I don't know, whatever. Everyone has some type of vice and some type of outlet. And most times it's just humans trying to cope with life. Life can get really tough. Life can get really hard for people. And some people go through unthinkable things in life, things that you wouldn't even be able to fathom. And they still have to keep going. One thing about life, once you wake up the next day, that thing is still going to loom over you, but you still have to keep going. So most people are just trying to find a way to forget, just to numb the pain in some kind of way to get through life. And when I watched this documentary, that TMZ did, it just really made me realize, like, even though like I always saw Prince as like larger than life, he was just a human, of course, just like the rest of us, just trying to get through life. And here he is dealing with something that was very painful, something that, well, oh, and you know what? As I was going through this, I'm sorry, I didn't even touch on what I wanted to touch on. The reason they said that he was even taking the painkillers in the first place is there was a situation, and I want to say it was around, they said when it was, but now I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was around the Purple Rain days, somewhere, around that time. He was doing a scene with something with a bathtub, and the bathtub fell. Well, when the bathtub fell, he fell, I guess he fell with it somehow, but he ended up injuring himself really, really bad. But what he did was he still went on with the show. You know, the show still went on, whatever he was doing. He went to the hospital. He got whatever he needed to get done. Although he probably should have been resting. They were just saying how like he just kept up his rigorous schedule and just kept going. And basically he progressively got worse. Plus age, you know, that's another thing. You know, one thing about people like Prince who are so acrobatic, who are so athletic, who are so in shape, they are used to being able to do certain things with their body, and then just not being able to do it, that can take a toll on a person too and be hard for them to, you know, even just deal with. I noticed like towards the end, uh, you know, he was wearing like more like platform shoes. Not even platform, I don't even know. Kind of like they were tennis shoes. They didn't have a heel, but they were just thicker shoes, like with a thick sole, no heel, you know, or anything like what he usually wears. But yeah, he would wear like I don't know, maybe like I don't know even know what those shoes are called, but I can't even think. The only thing that's coming to mind right now is Skechers, but that's not even like it's just because of how they were made, almost like Air Force Ones, just like a kind of a tennis shoe, like with a thick sole. But he had different types that he would wear. They were like I don't know. You could tell they were more comfortable, but they were like an elevated shoe, but definitely not a heel. They were like flat on the bottom, but you know, like a thicker sole. He had gone to wearing that, and I'm sure like even for him, like his heels, that was his signature thing. I mean, he always they showed like all the heels, and it was just so cool to see. Like it was hundreds, I think thousands of shoes they showed, and they all looked about the same. They had about the same height in the heel, but it was just so many of them just to go with, you know, like his different outfits. So that was amazing to see. A lot of the things that they showed in there were amazing and things that I hadn't personally seen before. I thought it was really sad how they showed him in the elevator after he had passed away, but they did kind of like blur it out, but it was like you knew that it was him. That was very sad. And then they also showed his apartment, not his apartment, but his house, or where he was. They showed like all the different pill bottles, and I guess it had like it was supposed to be aspirin, but he would like put other stuff in the aspirin bottles, like Vicodin and things like that. So it was all very interesting. I always thought, nah, they set him up. Nah, that's not true. You know, like when it first happened, I just still couldn't believe it. I'm like, no. And a big part of the reason why I didn't believe it is because everyone close to him was saying, no, this is not him. You know, everyone was just making it seem like there's no way he would do this kind of thing, you know? So clearly he was very good at, um, you know, keeping things private, you know, clearly. We know that. That's just, he was known for being very mysterious. But yeah, just man, I guess the more what I learned from this whole thing is we can't really live in this world alone. You know, sometimes people say things you don't want to hear, but there comes a point where you have to listen to other people, um, especially those that love you, the ones close to you, because with Prince, this could have been totally prevented. It's like if he had like a circle of people that he trusted that could just like, you know, he could maybe confide in, even if he had a confidant, someone that could help him without him feeling weird about getting the help. It's like in life, everyone needs a person that they can talk to and just not feel self-conscious about talking to them, just can be open with them. And if they need help, everyone needs at least one person in life. You have to have at least one. And that was one thing, you know, I learned too, like you need at least one person that you can count on. I mean, hopefully you'll have more, but at least one. And I feel also you should be that person to somebody. You know, you should be the person that people, at least one person can come to and feel like they can just lay it all out, and that you'll still be there for them, and that they feel comfortable coming to you. with things, no matter what. But yeah, we all need that in life. And I just saw what it looks like to just be completely like alone, at the end when you need people the most. And it also helped me to see, although I know a lot of times it's so hard to trust people, you don't know people's motives, but it also made me realize we have to be open to at least try to have at least a small circle of core people we can trust and who trust us and who, basically will be in our corner. So we're just not alone because you just cannot live in this world alone and be okay. You just need people. You need, that closeness, something where when you hit rock bottom, someone you can call and get some type of help. But at any rate, this is like one of the longest videos I've ever done. It just, man, it just brought back so much, just the thought. And it also, I always like to look inward, no matter what. I am the kind of person, I like to look inward when I'm processing things. And I just feel like, man, this is kind of like something about this was an eye opener for me to really just focus on certain things in life that are actually important as opposed to other things and, prioritize more and really just think about life as just remember how precious life is and just remember tomorrow, it's just not promised to anyone and just to live life to your fullest and also to just be like a blessing to people, just to be, the person that you want others to be to you kind of thing. It's just really important because people need each other. And if you could just be that one person that's there for someone, you could really like change a person's life totally. And a lot of times it doesn't even take much. Sometimes it just takes sitting and listening to people or just being there for them when they need help. If you have the means to help them, in whatever that looks like, if you are able to help someone in whatever way you're able to help them, why not just help them? At any rate, guys, I'm going to shut this video down. This has definitely been a long one. I hope you guys enjoy the video that TMZ did. Once again, it is TMZ presents Prince Fatal Secrets. Very sad. It's kind of sad, watching it, but it's also, a bit informative. So it's a good watch. I recommend it. Check it out. Until next time, guys, don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe. Peace.